Welcome back to episode 84 of the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast, presented by Vansickle Pet Value and Lundy's Lane Pet Value. Make sure that if you're a fan of dirt racing in Southern Ontario and you're thinking of checking out Merrittville Speedway, stop in at either location. Vansickle Pet Value in St. Catharines, just off 4th Avenue, across from the Best Buy in that plaza. Or you can head to the corner of Kaler and Lundy's Road in Lundy's Lane, in Niagara Falls. And that is where you'll find Lundy's Lane Pet Value. Both locations have your race day tickets. Beat the box office. Grab your tickets for Merrittville Speedway and get in those grandstands without having to wait in the line at the box office at the main gate. This is episode 84. It is the Ryan Beagle episode. We'll shout out the big dog, driver of the 84 RK Ackland Insurance ride in the Hoosier Stocks, Street Stocks, Thunder Stocks all around Southern Ontario. And the podcast is going to be a little bit different going forward, a little bit different weekly. We're going to try a couple new things, including what I'm calling, for now, the race report, where I'm going to take you for a lap around Southern Ontario and beyond to recap some of the racing results in the world of Southern Ontario dirt track racing. Let's start with Merrittville Speedway, which back on April 20th had their season opening event, the Peters Construction Group Spring Sizzler 2024. 4 drivers found their way to victory lane, including Gary Lindberg at a Ridgeway in the 350A Modifieds. And in the Southern Ontario Sprints, it's Scotland, Ontario's Dylan Westbrook going to victory lane. From Caister Centre, it is Jim Lampman winning the Hoosier Stock race, and Alex Riley of St. Catharines took home the win in the Vansickle Pet Value PV on the lane at 4 cylinders. The commercial auto electric 358 Modifieds returned to Merrittville Speedway Saturday night to cap off a chilly Spring Sizzler. The Carlton brothers led the field to green. Fred and Luke up on the front row for the start of that one. Fred led early before a lap 15 incident where Nelson Mason had some kind of mechanical failure and dropped some fluid on the racetrack. On the restart, Gary Lindberg tracks him down, and it was his first event back at Merrittville Speedway since the post-race tech failure at the Brian Stevens Memorial last June. He tracked down Carlton, makes the pass for the win, and Lindberg was a man on the mission, able to open up a comfortable lead out front and settled it and held him off on a 4-lap shootout after a caution at lap 31. On the single file restart, Carlton tried to hang with Lindberg, but couldn't get a pass completed before Lindberg ran away. With a clean racetrack out front, Chad Brockman finished 3rd. Defending modified champ Pete McNell was 4th, and Luke Carlton rounded out your top 5. The Southern Ontario Sprints began their 2024 campaign in chaotic fashion. We'll break all the pre-race coming to the white sort of drama in just a few moments, but the main guy we got to talk about is Dylan Westbrook. Once the race got going, Westbrook emerged as the star of the show with blistering speed. The car was so hooked up, the right front tire would lift up off the ground on corner exit, basically almost pulling wheelies down the front stretch. It was pretty crazy. Jason Barney did have a shot at Westbrook after a lap 21 restart, but could not cleanly pull off a last corner slide job and settled for second place after starting 11th. Ryan Turner rounded out the podium after driving from the 14th spot. DJ Christie finished 4th, and Mike Bowman finished 5th. Steve Shaw Sr. and Pete Reed led the field of 28 Hoosier Stocks to the green. Shaw led early, and for much of the race, frequent early cautions for a variety of single-car incidents made it difficult for the race to kind of get any kind of flow going. Jim Lampman, who started 3rd, found himself on the front row for a restart with Reed on lap 11, which he was able to take the lead on. 2 laps later, another caution came out when Go Fast Teeple slowed. The final 7 laps of the event ran green, and the veteran Lampman started the year off with a big win over Reed, Rodney Rutherford, Dave Bailey, and Steve Shaw. Austin Worstrow and Anthony Kelly started on the front row in the Vansickle Pet Value PV on the lane 4 cylinders. Alex Riley took the lead of the race prior to a caution and was able to hold off championship rival from 2023 Worstrow and teammate Kyle Rothwell when they got back to the green flag conditions. Rothwell would chase Riley like a dog on a bone for much of the race's final 7 laps, but could never get close enough to sneak by for the win. Riley made it back-to-back wins in the season opener, with Rothwell and Worstrow rounding out the podium, and Mason Anderson 4th, and Ken Hare finishing 5th. Stock Car Racing returns to Merrittville this coming Saturday with the Select Total Service 73rd season opener at Merrittville Speedway. All 5 Bobcat and Hamilton weekly racing divisions will be in action, including the commercial auto electric 358 Modifieds, Barron Roofing, Seminex Esso Dirt Car Sportsman, Hoosier Stocks, Rona Deutsch Mod Lights, and the Vansickle Pet Value PV on the lane 4 cylinders. Gates open at 5:30, and racing will begin at 7 p.m. Shortly after this podcast drops, you will see race cars on track at Ransomville Speedway, just over the border in Ransomville, New York. They've got their opening test and tune night tonight, where multiple divisions will get out there and turn some practice laps around the Western New York racetrack. We'll have a look at their season and how things stack up ahead of their season opener next week on the show. For the Touring Modifieds, the Super Dirt Car Series is still in a holding pattern after that previous rainout back on April 13th. Still have to wait till May 26th to see the Heroes Remembered 100 at Weed Sport. That is the next Super Dirt Car Series event that we will see, followed by Thunder on the Mountain at Thunder Mountain Speedway in Lisle, New York, right after the Weed Sport date. That's Monday, May 27th. Short Track Super Series, they're also on a bit of a holding pattern. We're waiting for their event at Delaware International Speedway for the Short Track Super Series Diamond State 50. In the world of Outlaws, they were racing at Paducah Sprint Car Showdown, April 19th, 2024 at Paducah International Raceway. Sheldon Haudenschiel gets the win after starting second. His front row partner for this main event, the 17B of Bill Balog, he ended up finishing second after leading the opening lap of the event. Michael Kofoid was third after starting sixth. Cole Macedo and Carson Macedo both rounded out your top 5 over there. The World of Outlaws returned a Saturday, April 20th at Tri-State Speedway for the World of Outlaws Hobbstown Showdown in Hobstead, Indiana. Brady Bacon grabs the win in that one. David Gravel was second, and Michael Kofoid finishes third. Carson Macedo with another top 5 finish, and Logan Schuart was fifth in that one. Gravel continues to lead the standings over Donnie Schatz by 34 points. Gio Scelzi is 52 back in third. Logan Schuhart fourth. And Carson Macedo rounds out your top 5 in points, 68 points back of David Gravel. And what about the high limits? We had the high limit hustle at Southern Oklahoma Speedway, April 19th. Brad Sweet grabs the win in that one over Tyler Courtney. Spencer Baston was third. Brent Marks fourth. Corey Day rounds out your top 5 from the Friday night action. And Saturday, the high limits take to Salina Highbank Speedway in Salina, Oklahoma. Brad Sweet grabs the win there. Brent Marks was second. Rico Abreu third. Jacob Allen fourth. And Tyler Courtney grabs the 5th spot in that one. And one more event for you from the world of the high limit racing series. The West Memphis, Arkansas track Riverside International Speedway welcomed the high limits with Corey Day grabbing the win over Tanner Thorson and Tyler Courtney. Brad Sweet finishes 4th. Cole Macedo 5th in that one. Following that race on the 23rd, Tyler Courtney is your championship point leader over Brad Sweet, Corey Day, Brent Marks, and Spencer Baston in 5th in these series standings as of right now. High limits are off now until May 1st when they take on the Kansas Clash Midweek Money Series event number 3 at 81 Speedway. And the World of Outlaws have been rained out for the event tonight, Friday, April 26th at Knoxville Raceway. It was the World of Outlaws Premier Chevy Dealers Clash. They will try that one again tomorrow night, night 2 of the Clash at Knoxville, scheduled to go Saturday, April 27th. That'll wrap up the race report for this week. If there's a track or a series that you want covered in the Southern Ontario Dirt Show race report, let me know. You can at the show at SODS_pod, SODS_POD on Instagram and on Twitter. And let us know even in the comments section on Facebook as well. Or send us an email, the Southern Ontario Dirt Show at gmail.com. Obviously, Merrittville is the show that is on the mind most. We just had that opening event with the Spring Sizzler 2024, and it kind of got started in chaotic fashion. I've got a little video that is going to go out on our socials breaking down all things from that restart and some of the fan camera angles, as well as Joe Albertine's overhead of the drone shots. If you haven't seen those, that's really, really cool. It's a great way to watch a race. Joe does a great job capturing things with a drone. I think he's just Joe Obertine on YouTube. I'm sorry, Joe, if I'm getting that wrong. And I'm also apologize if I'm saying your last name wrong. We all know I'm bad with pronunciations on this show, but I think the overhead is a really good view because there is also included, audio from the race director in the tower. So if you missed out what happened In the Southern Ontario Sprints, coming to white. The green has not started, not the white flag to signal one lap. It was one lap till we take the green. The field fires out of their formation lap, the 4 wide salute. Then everybody lines back up. Field looks good to go. Down the backstretch, you can hear the tower race director say, thanks for being here. Great car count, la da la da da. And then there's a bit of a pause. And that's when he chooses to tell the field, hey, we're coming to white this time. The yellow light at the front stretch stayed on. The white flag was displayed when the field came underneath the Tim Hortons finish line. But the argument could be made that maybe the race director was a little late on calling coming to white. However, the fact that the race director never said come into green is kind of an issue, because as they get into turn 3, DJ Christie fires off. And the rest of the field goes, well, I guess we're firing this lap. And they all jump. And then when DJ realizes that it was not go time and the yellow light is still on, he lets off just past the Tim Hortons finish line. The field behind him doesn't know what's going on. They stack up, multiple cars involved, 6 cars in total picking up damage. Travis Cunningham involved. Eric Gledhill went over. Jamie Turner flipped over. Darren Dryden was involved. Like I say, 6 cars in total involved. It was a very chaotic start for the Southern Ontario Sprints, and a shame that it happened. There was a lot of talk online, a lot of talk around the sport about what happened there. I'll give you my take when I watch the video. And again, I'm going to put up a full detailed video on our social media to kind of break it all down, where I can kind of go frame by frame with it, if you will. So for me, I see a couple things. One, if with a new race director crew, obviously Doug Leonard moving on from Southern Ontario to work with the World of Outlaws, being a race director for them, which again is such a cool milestone moment for somebody from our area to move on down. But with that, we've got new crews, new people in place running the series. And I just think that I'm trying not to be too critical, because I don't really think there's any one person who's at fault for any of this. I kind of understand where everybody's upset with either the tower, with DJ, with the drivers themselves. It can go one way or the other. Here's my take. I'm up in the tower. I can hear what the race director is saying. It's a very lucky spot that we have at Merrittville, where we are in the same tower as the race directing crew and the scorers and all that. So if I need any piece of information, I can literally just basically shut up and I can probably hear it. And that's what happened. I thought the field looked pretty good. Maybe they were going to come to green. And then I hear race director say, coming to white. So I stop hyping things up on the mic, because I'm like, okay, there's still going to be one more lap. And the next thing I know, field's in turn 3, DJ punches it. He's lined up with Dylan Westbrook. Westbrook is, one of the best drivers that we've seen around here for quite some time in the 360s. You want to get the jump on him. You got to be out there ahead of him. I totally understand it. I completely get it. But he jumped the start. Even if we were coming to green, he jumped the start at the middle of turn 3. I asked DJ to come on the show and talk about things, or even just give me some comments, just to see what was going on. He declined to comment. Totally fine. I completely understand that. I'm sure he got more than enough angry messages from other drivers trying to throw the blame at him. And again, I don't necessarily totally put all the blame on DJ, because if I just think that maybe, and when I have the audio of the race broadcast, you'll see how things kind of line up a little bit different in an actual clip. I just wonder. I think DJ probably had the jitters of just coming to green. It's kind of unusual that they would take that extra pace lap that they were set to go for before coming to green. All of that, it was just a weird situation. I would have liked to see the race director say coming to white, maybe further up the backstretch, as opposed to as the field is entering turn 3 or exiting the backstretch. But again, in any form of motorsports that I've ever watched, in the motorsports that I've participated in, if the white flag is displayed at the stripe and the yellow light is still on at the stripe, you're not coming to green that time. There were some flashing lights and yellow lights that were on that went out a little bit early around the racetrack, when things were called white. Maybe those could have stayed on until the field actually got to the line. Probably would have been the play that could have helped. But again, I don't understand why DJ jumped when he did. Which again, fine. opening night jitters, you jump the start, whatever. The other problem, and I think this is where a lot of drivers I've seen online are really upset, is the fact that the field jumps the start. They didn't actually get the green flag, but they're going. Before they even get into turn one, DJ's already off the gas trying to back up and realizing he made a mistake. All fine, hand dandy, except for the fact that when DJ went, everybody went with him. So as soon as he lets off, nobody else understands why DJ went or the fact they didn't get a green flag. They just saw the car in front of them take off. So they all start stacking up. That's where the calamity happens. If you're DJ or anybody in that situation, you got to ride that out until you get the call back on the radio saying, "Hey, that wasn't the start of the race, guys. Line it back up. Let's try it again." Because as soon as you do that, as soon as you let out like that, everybody stacks up. They don't know what's going on. It just was a shame. It was just an unfortunate incident that affected a lot of people, took out a lot of people, and I don't really think there's one source of blame or one person or one incident that totally or one thing that led up to that incident that we can really place the blame on. I just see it as a multiple an opening night mistake on a lot of different parts or opening night lack of communication. New race director, you got to know how his flow is. You got to learn how he talks, how he calls the field to green, all that sort of stuff. It happens. So like I said, I'm going to put a full on like video breakdown, try to use some still frame clips and all that up on our socials to better explain this. So again, if you're listening to this and you're like, Jonathon, I have no idea what you're talking about. I need to see the video. You'll see video and I'll do a full breakdown over this weekend after the Southern Ontario sprints are off for the next little while. So all in all, though, it was a great night at Merrittville Speedway. Huge crowd, all things considered, because it was freezing. Like it was probably 4 degrees. It was super great to see. I was super stoked on it. Really appreciate all the fan support. And speaking of Merrittville Speedway, I got my buddy Michael Caldwell, who's usually up in the tower with me. He's working on. I'm tempted to call him the new Fran. If anybody around Southern Ontario knows Fran, our elite statistician for some of these racetracks around here, I really think that Michael could be that next guy. I think he's got some spreadsheets he's working on. It's going to be interesting. I think he's got a good handle on all things Merrittville from a tower perspective. He's not too biased as a driver or anything like that. So I wanted to have him come on the show and help me tee up the season ahead at Merrittville Speedway. So we will get to Michael Caldwell coming up with our Merrittville Speedway season preview. Folks from Vansickle Pet Value and PV on the Lane aren't just fans of your favorite four-legged friends, they are race fans too. That's why Jeff and Rhonda Riley, as well as their staff, have teamed up with Merrittville Speedway to make your race day experience more convenient. Race fans can now pick up tickets for race nights while grabbing the highest quality food, treats, toys, and accessories for their pets from the St. Catharines and Niagara Falls locations. Beat the box office and the crowds. Their support of local racing doesn't just stop with you, the race fan. Catch the Vansickle Pet Value PV on the Lane 4 cylinders racing at Merrittville Speedway throughout the 2024 season. Check out Vansickle Pet Value across from Best Buy and Walmart on 4th Avenue in St. Catharines and PV on the Lane at the corner of Kayla Road and Lundy's Lane, Highway 20. All right, so with the Merrittville Speedway season basically upon us, and we've got a couple races, well, one race under our belt for a couple different divisions, but the whole thing gets going with the 73rd season opener this week. I got my pal Michael Caldwell joining me. His sister Maggie runs the kind of handicapping system up in the tower, but Michael's always hanging out and around the racetrack, and he's a pretty passionate guy about sportsmen and modified, so I figured you might be a good one to try to track down for a little talk here and look ahead at the season. So, Michael, welcome to the show, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jonathon. I'm looking forward to the upcoming season, chatting about it here.
Yeah, we already got things underway in the modifieds and the Hoosier stocks and the 4 cylinders this past weekend. Let's start with the big boys. Let's start with the commercial auto electric 358 modifieds. I mean, the Gary Lindbergh Revenge Tour gets going in pretty epic fashion. He was bad fast. Was racing like a bull through a china shop through that entire field and on what was a bit of a 1-lane racetrack. But he gets the win over Freddie Carlton and Chad Brockman, Pete McNell 4th, Luke Carlton 5th in the opening night. Is Gary Lindbergh the number one standout for a championship this year at Merrittville?
Yeah, I think he's definitely got to be looked at as the favorite this year. He's definitely coming back with a chip on his shoulder, definitely out to prove some people wrong. He's definitely going to be a statement year for the 37S, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm looking through the points right now. I'm trying to see who. I think it's too early to say who's going to be the number one because I really liked what I saw from both the Carlton cars. Fred and Luke both looked really fast in practice, and Freddie was up front for a lot of that feature on Saturday night as well. So I don't want to say immediately that Lindbergh is the outright favorite, but I think there's as many as 4, 5, 6, 7 guys that maybe can compete with Gary and take some wins.
Absolutely, I agree with the Carlton brothers there. Both of them look strong, both in practice and opening night. You can't count out Pete, defending champ. He's definitely going to be there in the end. I expect Brad Rouse to take another step this year. And then you always got your rookies like James Friesen, Nelson Mason, who could potentially do some damage as well.
Yeah, Friesen moving back up into the modifieds, racing again here after being down in the sportsman for a little while now. I think he's a real wild card to all this. He ended up finishing, I believe, eighth on Saturday night, back at the Spring Sizzler. He seems to be the wild card to me because he has such a unique style, and I've always admired the way James really wraps the outside of the racetrack. Nobody seems to do it as well at Merrittville. At least in the sportsman's, nobody was doing it the way he could do it, especially coming out of turn 3 and 4. And I think there was probably 4 or 5 races where we saw him either get a win or make a last lap pass or almost make a last lap pass doing that line. And if he can find that same groove with the modified, I kind of wonder if that gives him an edge and an advantage. But obviously, it was a bit of a one-lane racetrack on that first opening night with the colder temperatures, the ground not really having much moisture to it. I talked to Pete Bignell a little bit about that Saturday night race. He said the car was a little bit tight, wasn't able to really perform the way he wanted to. So I wouldn't count him out by any stretch of the imagination. But what about some of those newcomers, right? Like we talked about James Friesen. We've got guys like Nelson Mason moving up this year, running full time in the modifieds as well. Trevor Wright, I don't know how much we're going to see of him because I think last year he ran a lot of the BRP modified tour and toured around. So I don't know if that's going to affect him. Justin Sharp's going to have a full season in modifieds. We'll see Paul Gabori in and out of the series. Noah Walker made a start. So is there anybody from maybe the new class of modified drivers that you've got circled that might throw a wrench in things?
Yeah, outside of Friesen, I can definitely Nelson Mason only being in sportsman for 2 years and then coming into the 358s this year. I think he's going to be very strong. Like he was probably the most dominant car at Ransomville last year, and I think it was sixth in points. That definitely wasn't a accurate reflection of his season there. Then looking at the Americans, Chad Brockman, Noah Walker, like you mentioned, they're always looking good when they do come over. So I could see them playing spoiler throughout the year.
So I look at, we look at a stronger modified field for sure. Gary Lindbergh, probably the class of it so far. We'll see how that plays out. But I think when you move over to the sportsman, it's almost like a bit of a youth movement, as we've seen a couple guys move up over the last few years into the modified class at Merrittville. We've got a lot of young talent we're expecting to see either full time or at least most of the season at Merrittville. Jacob Chevalier comes to mind. He looked really good in practice. But what do you make of the sportsman this year?
Yeah, that's probably the most unpredictable class this year. Obviously, you got to give Cody his flowers here. He's definitely going to be the class of the field. You do have some solid veterans, though, in behind him, like Bill Bleach, Adam Leslie. But like you mentioned, it definitely is going to be that youth movement. I expect to see a guy like Matteo Penante jump out this year and definitely shoot up the standings. Jacob Chevalier, Nigel Pendakoski, a successful go-karter, he's also in the class this year. So I think it's definitely going to be an unpredictable year for sportsmen.
Yeah, I think the sportsman is probably like we're going to see Cody McPherson a lot again this year, and obviously he's going to, the whole field's going to have to go through him. But what happens behind him? Does anybody, especially once handicapping in a couple weeks comes into play? Some of those younger guys, you give them track position early in the night. Like, what does that do for them? Do we see some surprise winners? I think there's a lot of questions and question marks in that entire sportsman field. One guy you just mentioned, though, Adam Leslie, he really jumps out to me as somebody who can fill a void with Friesen and Mason both moving up. I look at Adam Leslie as a guy who can jump up there, maybe grab a couple different wins, be second, third, maybe challenge Cody for top spot. I think I don't want to say the pressure's on Adam, but I definitely think this could be a really big year, a real big return to form for Adam Leslie. I think that there's a lot of oxygen in the sportsman division that he can take up with his skill set and with his experience level.
No, absolutely. Yeah, definitely going to be fun to watch Adam this year. A couple other younger guys too that I expect to see take a jump. Taylor Vanderzanen and Jordan Costco. Those guys were both around the top 5 in points last year, and I think they're going to be ones to watch as well.
Yeah, Costco especially, he had that big win at Humberstone last year, obviously in the family race, so he's got the momentum from that. You never know. I feel like they've got a pretty good program over there. I think they take care of that car pretty well. So that's another one that you mentioned, like a younger guy, but has a lot of experience, has a lot of reps around Merrittville that he could be poised to take a next step and be a constant podium top 5 kind of guy throughout Saturday nights. Looking at the Hoosier stocks, this is my favorite class just because of the level of competition that we have seen over the last couple of years. I mean, we had that amazing finish. I think it was Fawcett and Logie last year, where it was literally inches, if not even less than that separated those two coming to the stripe. Obviously, you got your perennial favorites like Dave Bailey, Ryan Beagle. I don't know if Beagle's going to run the full season or not with us yet. I haven't had a chance to ask him about that. Whether he's going to be running a full season with us, but Mark Fawcett is back. Rob Murray switching cars up. He's running a 99. Going to be weird to see him in that as opposed to the M1. I'm sure I'm going to say that wrong in the booth more than a few times. But what do you make of the Hoosier stocks, and who's jumping out to you to maybe shake things up in that class and maybe take the fight to Dave Bailey?
Yeah, Hoosier stocks are always exciting. I think Dave Bailey's probably still the favorite this year, but it is a very strong pack behind him. There's two guys that kind of caught my attention week one that I'm thinking are going to be very strong this year. First one, Rodney Rutherford, rookie, top 5 finish opening night. And then the other one was Kyle Haynes. He jumped up 12 spots in the running order. So definitely the hard charger. So I think those two are going to be two to watch for this year as well.
Yeah, Haynes looked good actually, even in the test nights. I remember making notes about that 22 car. The other one that I was looking at is, and he was kind of in a weird position because I don't think he either. I didn't get the full story from Pete Reed, but Reed had some kind of technical issue with his standard car that we usually see him in. He jumped in the Logie 97 to get his points for the night on opening night, and Pete Reed ended up finishing second. So I kind of circle him as maybe the guy that can take it too. He really seemed to come on strong from maybe mid-June, July on, I think from last year, that he was strong everywhere he went, especially he did some damage down at Humberstone. So I think Merrittville could be ripe for the taking. I mean, again, Bailey's such a perennial favorite, and he's always so good, and that car is always so well maintained, but you never know. Like, again, when handicapping kicks in a couple weeks, and if it favors one guy or the other, or you never know how you have to come through the field with how hard you have to drive in this class because everybody's just so good, especially throughout the top 10. You never know what could happen. I really think Pete Reed might be poised to take the fight to Bailey, I think, for the championship.
I would definitely agree with you on that one. Always a strong contender.
So let's jump to the Mod Lights, who we haven't seen yet on the racetrack. They had the opening night off. I don't really know what to expect from these guys because I think we're going to have a lot of Central New York guys coming down this year. We saw Joe Isbell, and we had, I think, 3 or 4 guys come down last year. I think maybe we'll see even more from the Mod Lights from Brewerton and that area. So I don't know what to make of it. And the other thing I don't know what to make of was I didn't get a chance to talk to Brent Bigelow about what his plans are. Obviously, done racing sportsman, was going to jump in the crate car, and I think after the accident that happened in the sprints, I think that crate car is toast for MBR. So I don't know if Brent's got a sprint car ride anymore either. So I assume he's going to be back trying to chase another championship in the Mod Lights. But with the guys coming over from Central New York and Western New York, I think everything just got a little bit tougher for him.
No, absolutely. I think if he is running full time, I do think Brent Bigelow is definitely going to be a favorite. You did mention Joe Isabel. Every time he's come up this way, he's always putting on a strong run. Then I always look at guys like RJ Pitts too. Like they're right on the verge of like breaking out and being on that slider Bigelow level.
Yeah.
I can definitely see him taking that jump and potentially playing spoiler this year.
Yeah, and I don't want to say it was a down year for Josh Slider in any sort of way, but it kind of feels like it's been a down year or two for Josh Slider. I think they've really been focusing on getting that chassis program up and running and doing well with that. And I think now he's kind of poised to maybe kind of come back up at Brent and be like, well, no, Brent is running our house cars, and I kind of want to make sure that I'm just as good as Brent in our stuff as well too. So I would expect Josh Slater to have a rebound. Again, it feels weird to say that he's having a rebound because he did have some really outstanding runs last year. But I just think when I look at how things are going for the Mod Lights, Josh Slater, I think, has to be a factor and has to be somebody that we consider. Um, the other guy, I think you mentioned RJ Pitts. I think somebody who's kind of on that same level as him is Tyler Winger. I feel like Tyler Winger's, been right there, maybe third in the class, give or take. But why not him this year?
No, absolutely. Winger is always another strong car wherever he shows up. I can definitely see him in contention as well at the end.
Yeah. So we say all this, and I haven't seen actually official rosters for the Mod Lights. I haven't seen them for the Sportsman yet either. So we're trying to make predictions based on guys that we think are back and running a full-time schedule, but all this stuff is kind of still subject to change. That just leaves the Vansickle Pet Value PV on the lane 4 cylinders. Now, this class was the tightest points battle last season, coming down to the final night where Alex Riley was able to kind of wrestle that one away ultimately, and comes back out on opening night. Alex Riley puts up a win over Kyle Rothwell, his teammate from the TMR gang. Austin Worstrow, his championship rival, was third. Mason Anderson had a great run, and Kenny Hare 5K with another solid top 5 as well on opening night. What are you seeing from this class? Who do you have circled? I mean, I feel like Riley as the defending champion definitely has to be in consideration, but I think there's more than a few names that could take the fight to him as well.
Yeah, I definitely think Riley's definitely going to be in the fight at the end. The one car that I'm really looking forward to seeing take over at the end is Austin Worstrow. He's been second or third in the points the last 2 or 3 years, and I think this is going to be the year that could be his, where he pushes through.
Yeah, definitely. I talked to Jeff Riley, Alex's dad, and owner of Vansickle Pet Value, and we were talking a little bit about this division and a couple guys that he circled actually. Mason Anderson, he's expecting Mason to break through and get a win this year. I don't think Mason's got one yet, so that would be his first career win. The other prediction he gave me is to watch for Randy Alway. He thinks Randy Alway is going to be the first Mustang that we see in Victory Lane this year in that 34 car. So those are two guys that I'll definitely be watching. I was pretty impressed with what I saw from Mason driving through the field on opening night. Ended up P4 in that 4 car and did a good job keeping it clean. I feel like he, from where he started or from where we watched him in the first weeks of last season to the end of net last season to what we're seeing already early in this year, I think that's a guy who's really taken a lot of strides forward in this series.
No, absolutely. You're hit the nail on the head on that one. I think both of those guys are going to be there towards the end. One other car that I want to kind of give some flowers to, and that I think is going to potentially be in contention for first career win, is going to be Sierra Hughes.
Yes.
Finished sixth the opening night. Couple years now behind the wheel, and she just continues to progress. And I could see her playing spoiler and potentially stealing one throughout the year.
Yeah, and I think one of the best things I think that could have happened for her is that I feel like last year, between a couple of the different tracks, I felt like I could be wrong, maybe I'm misremembering this, but I feel like she was starting up at the front in a lot of races, especially last year, just due to the handicapping system and how things were going, where she was at in points and stuff. And I feel like that actually gave her some opportunity to get a lot of confidence to gain a little bit more experience at leading a pack or being up inside in the mix. And that's what you kind of need to be able to go and win these races. You can't just go from running 17th, 18th every week and then start winning races and running in the top five. You kind of have to run up there first, then worry about getting your finishes. And so I'm really glad you pointed that one out. I really like what I've seen from Sierra, and I like that we still see some Volkswagen bugs out there too. That's always nice. I think to wrap up here, let's go back through each division. I want you to give me your prediction for champion and most feature wins on the year. Doesn't have to necessarily be the same driver, but I feel like if you got any predictions on that or any other ones that you want to throw in, like something you're expecting, maybe a first time winner or whatever, give me some predictions. We'll start with the commercial auto electric 358s.
Okay. Like we mentioned, I think it's just going to be the year of the revenge tour for Gary Lindbergh. I think he's out to prove a point. I see him back in the championship contention there. Most wins, basically follow suit. I think it's going to be Gary as well this year. Although I can see Fred Carlton taking that crown as well. He has been very strong over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I I don't want to necessarily disagree with you. I think Gary definitely gets most wins. I can see him racking up 6 or 7. I just wonder if he finds himself in any kind of trouble at any point because he is so aggressive sometimes. And even if you're aggressive, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're wrecking people or that people are going to wreck you, but you can find yourself in incidents throughout the way that might affect your championship standing. So I'm going to go away from Gary as a championship pick just to be a little bit different. And I think I just wonder if a guy like Chad Brockman, if he decides to run the full season, which I don't 100% know if he's committed to or not, I circled Chad Brockman and I circled James Friesen if they can just consistency themselves to a championship, top
Yeah.
five the field to death. You know what I mean? Like I just think if those two guys have, they're going to have well maintained programs. They're going to be constantly in the fight. They're not always going to win every single race, but I mean, if you finish on the podium or you finish inside the top five all season long, you can win a championship. And we've seen some drivers do just that. So those are the two guys I'm circling. I'll go with the local story. I'll take the story of moving up. I'm going to say JMF shocks the world and takes the championship. So.
I can definitely see that one happening. I definitely like your Brackman pick as well. I know he's got heavy commitments over on the family farm and the sunflowers, the Sanborn. But if he can make it work and run weekly, I can definitely see him winning another championship here.
Well, he had the sail panels on the car. That's why I'm optimistic. I'm like, I feel like if he wasn't going to run full time or whatever with us, I think he wouldn't be having the sail panel car out on Saturday night.
Yeah, I know my dad was over in the pits talking to Chad this past week, and he said that that's the best his car's felt in a long time here. So
Hmm.
definitely some confidence in the three camp.
Over in the sportsman side, I feel like I feel like it's going to be boring here, but I feel like we got to pick Cody as a champion. The only thing that I think stops Cody McPherson from winning a title in the sportsman this year is if he decides to hit the road at all on a Saturday night and go chase some big tour race or something like that. If there's any kind of conflicts of schedule that might affect his ability to defend the championship. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right on that. It's going to be it's such an unpredictable field, but I do think Cody's definitely the class of it this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I I agree, 100%.
Yeah, it's tough to say right now with how much inexperience there is in youth. We mentioned Adam Leslie. We pumped his tires a lot. I think it would. If you're gonna knock Cody McPherson off the title, or even just to knock him off for the most wins in a season, I think it's gonna take at least winning 6 to 7 races, 6 to 7 feature events to knock Cody off, and that's a tall task. So, good luck to the sportsman field. That's all I can say. But you never know. I've seen stranger things happen. So.
One wild card I want to throw out there too is with it being such a wide open field, I'd like to see this door open up and potentially see a couple like the American guys come over.
Mm,
If we can get a Brent Senek or Cameron Tuttle to come over, those are two drivers that I could see coming over who have been here before and had relative success.
yeah.
That could be in the hunt as well, should they choose to come over.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, that's a good point too. And I'm gonna do a bit of a Ransomville preview on the show next week. Hopefully, I'm gonna have Stephen Petty join me to talk all things Ransomville next week if I can track him down. And that'll be a question I'll ask him: is what guys are you expecting to see over on Saturday nights more often than not? So I feel like the only drawback to that is I question if it's worth it to them between paying gas is one thing because they can fill up over on the state side and it's not the end of the world. But in terms of paying at the bridge, then coming over, I know Don's been pretty good in the past about hooking these guys up with some tow costs and all that, getting their stuff over to fill out the field. Um, I just don't know if it's worth it to them to come and race on a Saturday night, but maybe if they're not as experienced, maybe there's some guys that are kind of midfield guys or still trying to make things work in the sportsman over on the other side that want to come and race on Saturday nights for the extra experience. That might play in too, right? So we'll see how that plays out. Moving on to the Hoosier Stocks, most wins and your champion. Who you got?
I think I'm going to go with Dave Bailey as champion this year. Just feels like the right pick. It's a very strong field. There's so many cars that could take it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm going to go with Bailey on this one. Most wins. I really like the look of the 28 this past week. I can see Jim Lampman knocking off 4 or 5 wins this year, and with that's who I'm going to go with for most wins.
So I'm going to take Pete Reed to upset the apple cart and take the championship. I feel like this is going to be a very balanced year. I could be wrong. We could be having this conversation at the track in a month's time from now, and Dave Bailey's knocked off 4 in a row or something like that, and we're like, oh well, maybe not. But I think Pete Reed is your champion, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's a tie at the top for most wins. I think Bailey will be in there. I think Pete Reed will be in there for most wins. And I think, I haven't had a chance to talk to Beagle, but I would not be surprised if we're talking about Ryan Beagle having only started 8 features at Merrittville this year or 7 features and winning 4 or 5 of them. So
Yeah,
I know that's a lot of pressure to put on the big dog, but Ryan Beagle, I think, could be up there in terms of win totals for 2024 in the Hoosier Stocks as well. But I'm saying Pete Reed gets the championship, I think.
yeah, I like that pick too. Another shout out here that I can with the Hoosier Stocks, just with everything going on with Southern Ontario Motor Speedway. Assuming that Steve Shaw does run the majority of the season at Merrittville, can definitely see that 96 having a very strong run as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So we're on to the Rona Deutsch mod lights. We have not seen the mod lights on the racetrack yet, so I don't have a roster in front of me, so I don't 100% know who's committed, who's not. But I'm fully on board with I'm investing in the Josh Slider return party this year. Now, again, I haven't even talked to Josh to know that he's committed to a full season or anything like that. So I'm just putting that out there right now. But assuming Josh Slider is going to run full time, I think he finds a way to get the championship done because I think some of those Central New York guys, those Western New York guys that we're going to see coming over, I don't think they're going to commit to a full season and trying to win a championship over here. I think that's too difficult of a task for them with their own racing schedules and what they've got going on and travel and everything else. So I think the championship will still stay local, but I think a guy like Joe Isabel is primed to win 5 features again. He could be like a Beagle situation where he shows up 7 or 8 times and he wins more than half of what he starts.
No, definitely agree with that. For my pick for the champion, assuming he does run a full season, I do like Brent Bigelow again. However, if he doesn't complete the full season, I'm going to go with RJ Pitts on this one. I definitely think he's ready to take that championship over. That's who I'm going to go with.
Nice. I like that. And who you got for most wins?
Most wins, I'm going to go with Josh Slider.
Okay. All right. I like it. We were both riding the Slider train. I think it just feels like he's due for a rebound. Last one here. Let's end it off strong with most wins championship pick in the 4 cylinders. Who you got?
I mentioned it earlier, but I'm going to go with Austin Wurstro for champion this year. Couple seconds and a third in the points. He's definitely ready to take over at the top. Most wins, we're going to go with the defending champ, Alex Riley. I think he's going to knock off 6 or 7 this year and be right in the contention at the end as well.
Yeah. I don't know 100% what the plan is with Kyle Rothwell and how many races he plans to run this year versus Hannah versus whatever else. I think he's also got a sportsman, I believe, that he's going to try to get done for a full year as well. So I'm sure a lot of a focus is going to be on him. So I'm going to stay away from picking him, even though he showed a lot of speed in that opening night, and he'll jump in a mini stock every chance he gets, right, to go out there and try to win. Most wins on the year, I think I'm going to go with Austin Worstrow for most wins.
Yeah.
I think that's where I'm at. It's flip-flopping for me because you picked Worstrow to be the championship favorite or your championship pick. And I kind of agree, but then I also am like, wow, Alex Riley looks just so good already out of the gate. Their program is so well maintained. He's obviously aligned with Rothwell and all those guys with the Twisted Metal Racing gang. So and the other guy I'm scratching my head about is Kenny Hare, because we've seen that 5K get some wins, and I know that Kenny is going to be strong again too. He's another one that I'm like, Kenny might get it done.
Yeah, Kenny's definitely due here.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree. I'm going to go most wins Worstrow, and I'll pick Riley to win the championship. That's where I'll go. I feel like there's somebody I'm overlooking, and I'm feeling bad about it already, but that's just where my head's at with the 4 cylinders, I think.
Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely like those picks.
All right. Well, thanks for taking some time out and joining me here, Michael. Glad to have you on the show. Looking forward to chatting with you on race nights on Saturday nights up in the tower when you're able to make it to the track. And we'll see if our picks are correct in any sort of way.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Anytime you need me, give me a call, and I'll definitely be happy to come back.
Appreciate it. There he is, Michael Caldwell, joining me to do a little Merrittville season prediction on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. And the checkered is out on another episode of the Southern Ontario Dirt Show presented by Ohsweken Speedway and Bicknell Racing Products. Like what you hear, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with us on Facebook at Southern Ontario Dirt Show, or find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at SODS_pod. Have a question for the show? Email us, southernontariodirtshow@gmail.com. Thanks for supporting local racing in Southern Ontario, and we'll see you at the track.